Over the last 3 days, IEM Katowice has been going through its play-in stage, and now we are on the eve of the beginning of one of the biggest tournaments of the year. And to get as ready as possible for things to kick off, we are going to sit down today and recap everything you need to know about the play-in stage of Katowice. Now, we're going to do our best to keep this as trim and concise as possible, and if everything goes right, hopefully this video is not 4 hours long with annotations and a director's cut. I don't know, things are getting a little hairy here at the studio, but we'll try our best. We'll be focusing on the 8 teams who have qualified onto the main event stage, but of course at the end we'll talk about some of the notable teams who did not make it through the competition. It was 3 days of double elimination, best of 3 combat, so many games were played that it was nigh on impossible to watch them all in one sitting, and so today we'll make it all palatable for you guys. If that is something you're interested in, make sure you guys take a second, leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It helps out immensely in the YouTube algorithm, so thank you for doing it. And make sure you catch me over on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/LionHeartZ2. I stream Sunday through Friday at 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and I hope to catch you guys there soon. Just to let you guys in on a little bit of insider baseball here, I'm recording and editing this commentary on my Twitch page, so if you want to get a behind-the-scenes look at how these videos are made, you can do so there. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and start talking about these games. So, like I said in the beginning, we're going to be focusing firstly on the teams who have made it through. And surprisingly, at the front of the pack, and one of the first teams to qualify out of this field was actually Furia. Though, to be fair, I think when you look at the games they played, they had one of the easiest paths out of the bracket possible. They opened up their tournament affair by taking on Imperial FE, and while I actually think Imperial could give them a run for their money on any given day, Imperial are playing with a stand-in. Their coach is standing in, and that makes them much weaker than they otherwise would be. We're going to talk more about Imperial FE towards the end of this video, but unfortunately, with their coach on the lineup, they were never really going to compete. Despite that, they really gave Furia a hell of a ride on Mirage, pushing it to overtime from a huge deficit in the first half. Ana and Zaz looked really good rotating around the CT side. Ana was finding great impact with the AWP holding mid, and Bubble, being a coach who I presume hasn't played much in the last couple years, he did just fine. He held his own, and it wasn't just total dead weight. However, they couldn't cap off the comeback, and in overtime, Furia just looked more dominant. Fallen kind of had a rollback to year's performance, coming in with 26 kills and 1.45 rating, and that powered him through alongside a great performance from Cello. Queserado was kind of missing, something that's going to become a problem in future Furia series, but once they got through on Mirage, we moved to Dust 2, the home map for Furia at this point, and they looked completely unbothered. This was a 13-1 stomp, not much more to be said about that. Furia take a quick 2-0, advance to their second round matchup, where they have none other than Wildcard as their second round opponent. And listen, while you'll never hear me say a bad word about Stanislaw ever in my life, Furia, I think, are the better team by firepower, and that's what we saw kind of play out. Wildcard were dominant on Inferno, which is kind of their hallmark map for right now, so that's not surprising, but on Dust 2, once again, Furia just don't really lose Dust 2 that often. They stomped out Wildcard 13-5, then we had a very close overtime affair on Nuke to decide this series, and Wildcard were very close to stealing this series away from them, but on Nuke, Furia looked very solid, especially in that overtime, and they were especially powered through by a true carry performance from Queserado with 33 kills. This is one of Queserado's best games in what feels like many months. Even like prior to the major, it had been quite a while since we'd seen a true Queserado performance like this, and it came in at just the best time to help Furia secure one of the first place spots going into the main event of Katowice. They get out of a very easy bracket, but hey, you can only play the teams in front of you, and Furia beat both of their opponents, so they snagged that first place spot. Our next team qualifying right behind them are Eternal Fire. Continuing their excellent form following the Blast Bounty, they cruised through the competition here. Their first round matchup against Complexity was really nothing that they were worried about. They breezed past them on Anubis 13-6 off the back of a great Zontaras performance, and admittedly, Cole did a lot better than I thought they would, pushing to double overtime on Train before Eternal Fire pulled away in that double overtime to secure the 2-0 victory. I think the big thing here is that Woxic has maintained an incredibly high level off the back of that Blast Bounty finals. He led the series in kills with 56 total, Zontaras right behind him with 45, and despite Complexity looking much better on Train than I think anybody was going to give them credit for, Wicadia, Zontaras, and Woxic are proving thus far this year to be one of the best 3-man trios in the entire world. Eternal Fire definitely continued to impress me, and if they can maintain this run of individual form, then there's no doubt that they're a solidified dark horse to make a playoff run. It feels like as time goes on, Jada is only getting more and more comfortable in this system, and Wokadia has already turned around his game in a big way going back to the end of last year. So if Jada can adjust and bring back some of his Songal form, then Eternal Fire become one of the deadliest teams in the world just by strictly firepower. Major's always been a good enough in-game leader for this, and we all know how good Xantares and Woxic are. They just need to put it all together. They are very clearly better than a lot of the other teams similarly ranked as them. The question is going to be, can they take that next leap to beat a true playoff contender, knock off a Vitality more consistently, a G2, a Spirit? Will they get over that last little hump and capture a major title? Qualifying right after those two surprisingly was 3D Max, a team that I'm continuing to perennially underrate, and I don't know if I'm ever going to learn to just accept that they are a good top 15 level team or not, because they continue to impress me every time I watch them, and I'm never going into a tournament like this expecting them to do well. I guess that's just kind of on me at this point. Now, admittedly, I think they got a little bit lucky with this bracket. FlyQuest are just not a team I rate very highly at all. I think Regali is the only good aspect of that. They took care of work here in this first series very cleanly, 13-5 on Train, 13-7 on Inferno. But again, the pieces on 3D Max seem just very, very solid. Lucky, Joko, Maka, this is a great core of players. I kind of just continually expect Maka to not be good enough as both an endgame leader and an op, but he continues to be very good for his level of play, like what you would expect of this team. Lucky, Exercise has great moments all the time. Graffiti seems to be just this great versatile anchor type player. The firepower on this team is just very, very consistent. I guess if anything, I feel like 3D Max are very much in the paradigm of a big, where you see very great moments out of them, but I can't ever bet on or expect them to do well enough to make a serious playoff run. They're very, very good for that tier 1.5 level, but they don't seem to have that next step in their arsenal to actually be a true top 10 contender, if that makes sense. And in point of that, I think in their follow-up series against MIBR, they got off very lucky. This was genuinely just not a good series from both Insani and Lukowski, and I think if both of those players bring their A game, then MIBR is just straight up a better team than 3D Max. I would expect if you replayed this series over and over, best of 10, that MIBR would come out more often than not. Fair play, 3D Max really outstalled MIBR on Inferno, taking that to double overtime and winning it in the end. But on Nuke, Insani and Lukowski were just totally missing, both of them bottom fragging in disastrous ways. That's just not going to happen all the time. So while 3D Max, they get out of here in 2 games to get into the main event, I definitely don't know how to bet on them going into the playoff stage. So, I guess where I'll end it is, good job. I just don't know what to expect from them. I'm very weird on this team right now. But one team I am always all in on, courtesy of B1, our loyal channel member, is GamerLegion. Because no matter what Ash can do, he can do no wrong in my eyes, and GamerLegion making it into Katowice was sick. Now, I will say, I think they kind of got a layup here. SAW are a nothing team, and they played a Pain Gaming, who, while definitely one of my favorite teams of the year so far, were massively underperforming in this tournament. So, GamerLegion, they got the path out, and they capitalized exactly how you would want. Now, getting into that first series against SAW, as much as I really didn't rate this SAW team at all, I do have to say, Mutiras is just the nuke whisperer, so he made things really close, but GamerLegion maintained themselves in a very great way. Rez is on the post-NIP honeymoon period, where now he's free from NIP's control and influence. He's just back to 2017 Rez. I think PR has been a great fit for this team, not necessarily in this game, but he's looking great. And ZTR is just an insane IGL prospect. I'm so excited that GamerLegion got to keep him. I was utterly convinced he was going to get poached when Flammus did. So getting a chance to continue to work under Ash's tutelage, he has Rez on the side now, I think everything's just looking up for the GamerLegion. Again, a very similar story when we talk about this Pain series. Pain just did not have any firepower throughout this tournament. Davideus was struggling, Big Zera was struggling, Snow was totally missing. But on the GamerLegion side, Rez once again top frags, already showing why he's going to be such a great signing for this team, man. I'm just so excited about this roster. I want to see GamerLegion play better and better opponents, because I truly believe the more time they get to mold and grow, the better they will be. PR was fantastic here, especially on Mirage, where he was just going nuclear, but You know, granted, again, Pain really underperformed, so it's hard to like overrate into this, but it's still a great scalp for them to take this early on, and hopefully we get to see more excellence going into the group stage. Now, much to my chagrin, I do have to give Astralis credit, because after they went down in like disastrous fashion to MIBR in their opening best of 3, I thought for sure they were going to get eliminated, I was going to get to laugh at Cadian again, and then we could all move on, have a great laugh at their expense, and talk about other teams qualifying. But then I looked at their bracket, and of course, they drew FlyQuest in the second round, and I knew right then and there that there was a chance. And of course, Astralis make it through to the group stage, qualifying 5th in this field, so let's talk about it. Like I said, they kind of got their ass handed to them by MIBR in my opinion. I would say that Astralis, just based on the names alone, should be better than this MIBR lineup, but they just got kind of rinsed on Mirage, especially in the overtime where they failed to capture a single round. I mean, to be fair, they really only got to that overtime because of Stown putting in the work, but everyone else on Astralis was just not there. Device really couldn't get many kills to save his life, Cadian was just, you know, doing Cadian things, and Gabby had a disaster class, 13 and 24. Considering how much better MIBR was, like pound for pound in terms of just straight fragging, I'm shocked this one got to overtime, but that's how it is sometimes. We move on to Ancient. Once again, Astralis had a chance to get this to overtime, but couldn't get over the hump. But again, not to be that guy and point and laugh at Cadian, but getting 1 kill on the entirety of the T side isn't really going to help your efforts. You know, hey, listen, I guess I'm no expert, but you might want to get more than 1 kill at some point, maybe. But hey, even though they fell short in that series, they got kind of a layup, like I said. FlyQuest was not going to be a team I would expect to beat Astralis unless things went disastrously wrong. On the first map on Train, FlyQuest did take the early lead in the series off the back of a Dexter masterclass, frankly, and he's just liable to do that sometimes. I would expect FlyQuest to really win based off of what's going to come from Regali, but Dexter was just great here. They shut down the T side from Astralis pretty thoroughly. Despite some great execute attempts from Astralis, I think they're just not very well drilled on the map yet. But on Ancient and Inferno, we really saw kind of the difference in quality between these teams. For the first time in what feels like, I don't know, about 5 or 15 or 25 years, Cadian top fragged in a series, so gold star for that one, but everyone was just kind of feasting on Ancient. This was where the firepower really felt suspect for FlyQuest, where outside of, again, Dexter just being really good despite being the in-game leader, and Regali being genuinely a great signing, the rest of this team, I just really don't put much stock in. I didn't put much stock in them last year, and I still don't put any stock in them now. Like, they certainly had a chance to at least take this to overtime, but especially, like, on their T side, they were not going to get by Device with his op holds. Device is just, like, one of those players who historically has just been nearly perfect at holding the A site with the op in his hands. Very rarely are you going to get through onto that bomb site unless you shoot him in the back of the head. Especially, like, this last round clutch he had, the 4 kills on the A site defense, ending it with the Deagle headshot, that's just, like, vintage Device. And while I do like to make fun of Astralis at every opportunity, I still love Device as a player, don't get that twisted. And when he plays like this, I'm reminded of why he's one of the best players to ever do it. And fair play, he maintained that performance into this Pain series, but again, with the heavy caveat that Pain massively underperformed in this event. So again, Pain that played at, say, Blast Bounty, deletes Astralis. I firmly believe that. This was even like Big Azera admitted in interviews that they just couldn't hit shots, and it was very clearly frustrating them in a way that was starting to affect them strategically. So I think that Astralis just took advantage of a weakened Pain in the moment, and that's why we also got good games out of players like Cadian, who obviously we know typically don't second top frag the series with you know, a 1.31 rating. That doesn't tend to be what Cadian does. But fair enough, he did it today, and Astralis had made it into the group stage, and I don't know, man. I don't really expect them to do too much, because I'm a hater. Now, our next team qualifying right after them was Team Liquid, and I fully believe Team Liquid would have actually gone through 2-0, but this opening series against Heroic just proved a little too much for them. Heroic are a team that we're going to talk about, especially at the end, because them not qualifying just feels like a stroke of bad luck. Because so far, even though their roster still like is weirdly in flux with this whole Nilo situation, the quality of play that the Songal trio have shown alongside Sunpius and Tanir has been genuinely very good. And I think Heroic have a lot of upside going into the rest of this year. I mean, again, this opening series was genuinely fantastic. They took Liquid to a very close game on Anubis, considering Liquid are the best Anubis team in the world. And honestly, the reason Liquid kept ahead is because this was the NAF game. he was naffing. We were naffing so hard, we were reaching naff levels that shouldn't be possible. Naffers rise up. Really, we are in a golden era of naffing, at least in this play-in tournament. But afterwards, in the follow-up maps on Nuke and Dust 2, honestly, it was once again the T side that let down Liquid, because kind of everything else is working good for this team right now. JKS maintains being just an okay anchor player, Ultimate continues to look really good with the Optimus hands, and most of all, as we'll talk about in the subsequent series, Twist is playing at his best individual form in quite a few months. So if Liquid can maintain into the group stage this level of play, then we can really realize their potential with NeRTZ at the helm, because NeRTZ is bringing another factor of firepower that they simply didn't have before. So it feels like we could be seeing like the maximum potential of this lineup if all players maintain form, where maybe they're like an outside looking in title contender. In their follow-up series against Complexity, it was NeRTZ who was very clearly the best aspect of this team. He reached 20 kills on both maps on Inferno and Ancient, and while Complexity are certainly better than I expected them to be after losing a Liege, when NeRTZ is going to be this ridiculous and Twist is right behind him hitting headshots like he's not even in the IGL anymore, then really Complexity are never going to stand a chance. Ultimate still, like I said, operating at an incredibly high level. NAF continues to be one of the most rock-solid third mans in the entirety of Counter-Strike. It's no surprise that they breeze past Complexity in 2 games. Unfortunately, Liquid destroying any and all NA companionship and hope continues, as after finishing off the Civil War against Complexity, they then sought to deal with Wildcard, the Canadians. And this one legitimately sucks as a spectator for me to have to choose to eliminate one team out of Liquid and Wildcard, because I legitimately love both of these teams. Unfortunately, after a great overtime battle on Inferno, a map Wildcard have beaten Liquid on multiple times in the past, Liquid just destroyed them on Anubis 13-0, which was a really disappointing end to an otherwise very fun series. I mean, granted, again, as I've already said, Liquid are probably the best Anubis team in the world, and they are so goddamn good at this map. They have a positive win rate on their CT sides. They win the majority of their rounds on the most T-sided map in the game on the CT side. That's beyond fucked to have to deal with. Like, I can only imagine how frustrating that is for Stanislaw to realize he got 12-0'd on the T side of fucking Anubis, but when Ultimate, NeRTZ, and Twist are gonna combine with literally less than 15 total deaths, yeah, you're kind of just getting ran over. Now, I'm very disappointed to announce to you guys, much to my chagrin, much to my unmeasurable, unmitigated pain and disillusionment with the current state of the world, yes, Virtus.pro have qualified to the group stage. I know. It's a dark day for this world that Virtus.pro are in the hunt for another potential playoff run. And I don't know how I'm going to deal with that. They started off their campaign by getting absolutely stomped by Pain before they rapidly became a much worse team, which really is unfortunate considering how Pain got eliminated in such a meek fashion afterwards. But at that point, I thought for sure Virtus.pro were just going to bow out, but then they got fucking bailed out by the goddamn reshuffle in the brackets because they got Saw in the follow-up game. And as much as I hate Virtus.pro, they were not going to lose to the Saw team, and that is proof by the fact that Saw didn't win any rounds in either second half and only won 7 total across both maps. And no matter how bad Electronic is at in-game leading, he can't fuck that up to this extent, so they got a handout there. And then, in their advancement series, the Winner Go Home series, they got MIBR, who again, as we've already talked about in this video, were not playing to their usual level. Once again, Lucalzi and Insani are both firmly in the severe negatives, and that's just not gonna happen pretty much in any other tournament. Virtus.pro got so goddamn lucky. It's a borderline crime against humanity that they are in the group stage, but such is life sometimes. And rounding things out, our last team to qualify into the group stage for Katowice was Big. Now, Big continued to look about as good as I would expect. I still don't think they're ever going to be able to make that leap to a top 10 team, but they did good consummate to the level of this field. Now, they opened up their efforts in Katowice by losing to Wildcard, and listen, that's no disrespect when you're losing to Stanislaw Baratheon, King of the Andals, and the First Men, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms, and rightful heir to the throne. Long may he reign. It was afterwards that Big definitely got bailed out a bit by their matchups. They had to play Imperial FE in their second round game, and as we've already covered way back at the beginning of this video, Imperial, while I think are definitely good enough to give Big a run for their money, they're playing with their coach as a stand-in. That's just never going to work in your favor. Again, the only time a stand-in has ever not been a problem is when you're G2 and you're carrying Stewie, or you're Kerrigan winning tournaments with stand-ins. That's the only two cases. For everyone else, it's an insane detriment, and you can't even really give them any props or say anything bad about them when they have to deal with that. What was genuinely very impressive for Big was them beating Heroic in 2 games. I would have firmly expected Heroic to be the better team in this series, and Big slapped them the fuck around. And the one person you have to credit that to is Hyped. He's the new man in the team, he's taking over for the opping from Searson, and he was fucking incredible in this series. He was hitting shots I firmly believe Searson couldn't hit. He ended this series going 45-15 over both maps with a plus 30 differential and a 2.21 fucking rating. That is insane shit to do, and you're back against the wall in a must-win series. He straight up manhandled Heroic, hit them with some of that German efficiency, and showed them who the fuck was boss. And that actually dovetails nicely into the last section of this video, so let's talk about some of the teams who failed to make it. Heroic, I think, need to figure out this Nilo situation very, very soon. If you're tuned into the latest episode of Snake and Banter, the one with Magix that Thorin uploaded a few days ago, they talk about this a lot more in depth, but that whole roster situation needs to be settled because Nilo is clearly a great talent, so they need to decide, are they going to keep Tanir or are they going to go with Nilo? They should probably be going with Nilo because they signed him to that long-term contract, but they got to figure this shit out. Because clearly, whatever trio they got going on right now with Songal is working out much better than expected. Sunpius was clearly a home run signing, and this team could really build upon that, but they got to figure this roster situation out because it's only going to be a cloud holding them back as they go forward. Now, the next and most obvious fuck up at this tournament was Pain. Pain are coming in as a definitive top 10 level team for my money, and they totally disappointed outside of their first series against Virtus Pro. They are good enough to not only easily clear this field, but be legit playoff contenders in the main group stage, and they just didn't have it this tournament. That's going to happen from time to time. Their firepower massively underperformed, and you could just tell how frustrated they were, especially towards the end, that they couldn't execute their normal strategies. Big Azera himself especially looked very frustrated that he couldn't get map control in his T-signs like he would normally expect. Now, I think that's definitely a growing pain issue and him not having enough experience, so we'll see how he grows and adapts after this. I'm not worried about this lineup whatsoever because Davideus proved himself to be so good of an addition already. It's just sometimes you don't bring your A game, and that's what happened to Pain in this tournament. Basically the same story with MIBR. Lukowski and Insani just weren't good enough. That's going to happen. Don't let it get to you guys. Just get back in, get in the scrims, get your head straight for Cluj-Napoca or wherever you're going next, and we'll see how you guys do at the next one before we start putting up the warning flags. I definitely think Wildcard also could have made it out of this field. I think Stanislaw is piloting just a genuinely excellent lineup. I think Suspi and Fozy are great. JBA showed finally some great land form, something he struggled with in the past. I think this team will only grow and develop and get better, so even though they don't make it out here, I don't think that's anything to be worried about. I think Wildcard are a great team. And then finally, Imperial FE. I know they are going to be constantly talked about no matter where they go. I think it's very clear when you watch them play that they're a top 20-ish team by talent. There's nothing that indicates to me that they can't compete with that level of play. So honestly, the one thing I hope for them is that they continue to go to qualifiers in other big tournaments. I hope they don't continue to shelter themselves and choose to stay only in the women's leagues. They clearly have the skill to hang with some of the best teams in the world, and I hope they take the momentum that they're building here off of these results and use it to springboard themselves to the next level. They're going to be a positive force in the scene, and I hope they continue to kick ass at wherever they go. That's about it, guys. We got through this about as fast as I was hoping to. Hopefully you guys are now ready for Katowice to start proper tomorrow. As usual, I will be here covering the games as they happen. So if you like this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe as it helps out immensely in the YouTube algorithm. Thank you to our channel members, Justin, Jesse, Furley, Bubblesj, Milan Berta, Dr. Cocktor, Patatas Kaftesi, PTR, B1 Games, Cody Foxworthy, and Justin Vegt. If you want to become a channel member, you can do so at the link in the description down below. For $5 a month, you can support me directly, get your name at the end of videos just like this, as well as an exclusive role in our community Discord. Thank you to our channel members. Make sure you guys follow me on twitch.tv/LionHeartZ2. As I am recording this, I am live right now on my Twitch channel making this video with my chat. So if you ever want to see the behind the scenes when I'm running late on my production schedule, I stream my video making process there, as well as me being terrible at Counter-Strike. So make sure you come on by. It's a great time. And with that, I'll see you guys in another video. Peace.